Hello and welcome to the FATBOSS guide to Maut on normal and heroic in Ny'alotha.
Yes, this two-phase boss has many simple mechanics that can actually interact in quite technical ways, so let's not waste any time and start off by talking about phase 1.
So the boss gains mana both passively and through some of his abilities throughout phase 1, which is an issue because when the boss reaches 100% mana, he'll enter phase 2 where you'll need to burn through his mana shield, which deals no damage to the boss directly. So you want to keep the boss in phase 1 as much as you possibly can by minimizing the amount of mana he gets. One mechanic the boss has that gives him mana is the Devour magic debuffs. These are applied to several players, and after 6 seconds, these people will deal damage to all players within 9 yards of them, whilst also giving mana back to the boss for each player hit. This also leaves behind a void zone that you need to access to counter other boss abilities. So when you get the debuff, you want to move away from others, and place the debuff around 20 to 30 yards away from the boss. As melee and tanks also need to access these zones, we recommend that you put at least one of them very close to the boss. Now when you stand within these zones, your silence, take ever increasing magic damage and give the boss a shitload of mana every second that you're in there, which is all terrible of course, but one additional thing that it does is it makes you immune to all other magic damage, which is great because the boss casts Stygian Annihilation, which will flat out one-shot you, unless you're in one of the circles. So as soon as the 5-second cast starts, make sure you're near a circle, and a few seconds before it completes, move into the circle, and then once it's passed you can then move out. Another mana related mechanic is the add. The boss will spawn a dark manifestation add via a black hole. You'll want to run against this black hole because it will do a bunch of damage to you when it expires if you're stood within its center. The add will then spawn out of this black hole and has very little health, but instead has a large mana shield. Any damage you do to this add will reduce its mana, and once it's all gone, the add will then die. One tank will need to pick up the add as soon as possible and make sure it never goes within 20 yards of the boss, otherwise the boss will immediately eat it, absorbing all of its remaining mana. Aside from that, the only thing the add will do is cast Dark Offering, which just gives some of its mana to the boss. You can only interrupt that by dragging the add into the zone, but it's important that you don't keep it in there too long because of course it is completely immune to magic damage. As soon as the add spawns, all ranged DPS should swap to it immediately, and ideally kill it before the next add spawns. This is because the boss will cast Shadow Claws, which applies a stackable 24-second dot on the tank, but taunt swapping with an add up can lead to the boss eating one of those adds, so killing adds way before the next one spawns gives the tanks an opportunity to completely swap jobs, usually around the 2 to 4 stack mark. On Heroic, the boss will also occasionally cast Black Wings, usually at melee or we think a player within melee range of the boss. This cast will deal damage and knock back any player within a cone. This is really irritating, especially for casters, so to counter this you'll want to make sure that all your melee players are stood on one side of the boss, and ranged and healers are on the opposite side. And because of how frustrating Black Wings is, this is the reason why we never had any melee DPS switch to the Dark Manifestation add. And one last note about these adds, when the boss is very close to 100% mana and is about to transition into phase 2, it's a good idea to let the boss eat the add in order to proc the phase, rather than going into that phase with an add up, as the add will be giving the boss mana in that phase, which really doesn't help. And before we do jump into phase 2, the last thing to mention for this phase is for your healers. Every now and then the boss will debuff the raid with a 3-second dot. This dot doesn't do a lot of damage, however it scales with the boss's mana pool, so you need to keep an eye on the group towards the end of the phase, as damage on the raid will be highest there.
So once the boss reaches full mana, he'll move into the middle of the room and detonate all of the void zones, so make sure you're not stood within them. This is where the boss gains his mana shield, which reflects 100% of the damage you deal to it back to you. If you fail to break the shield within 1 minute, the boss will instantly kill the entire raid. Also, to add to this sort of time limit, the longer you spend in this phase, the more stacks the boss will gain of a permanent 1% magic damage dealt increase, so you really want to get out as soon as you possibly can. Everyone should stack up to one side of the boss so healers can just go ham and try and keep everyone up as they nuke through the shield. Now whilst this is going on, orbs will travel towards the boss from pillars that are placed around the edges of the room. If they reach the boss, they'll give him up to 20% of his total mana back. So set up at least one player on each side of the boss, and these players just soak the orbs that are coming towards him. Mobile range DPS such as hunters or even tanks should be assigned to this job, just to make it so you don't lose too much damage on the boss. You also want to soak the orbs as soon as possible, as the longer they travel, the more damage they do to the raid when you soak them. Now after soaking, you gain a zone around you, and after 6 seconds you will apply an 8-second buff to all players in that zone, which increases their mana regeneration by 150% and increases their healing done by 50%. So you want to make sure that you return to the group to give the healers this buff, which allows them to spam heal as much as they want without having to worry too much about their mana. Now lastly, on Heroic, you will get the Drain Essence debuffs applied to several players throughout the phase. These magic debuffs deal ticking damage and drain mana from the player. This also gives Maut 1% mana every second. When the debuffs are dispelled or they time out, they deal a small burst of damage and burn mana from all players within 8 yards. This explosion doesn't seem to give more mana. So with that in mind, players with the debuffs should either just move out to be dispelled, which is safer for raid damage, or just be instantly dispelled, which hurts the raid a bit but gives Maut much less mana. It's kind of up to your healers what you want to do. Just make sure that these debuffs do not last too long, as otherwise Maut will just gain far too much mana and the phase will go on for too long. Once you've broken through the shield, the fight returns to phase 1 and it will just repeat until the boss is killed. Most raid teams are able to kill the boss after 2 phase 2s, but you might have 3 if you muck up the adds in phase 1 or just generally have low damage. But that's it for this boss. Make sure to go and check out our written counterpart for this guide over on Wowhead. It's been frequently updated and has handy notes and pictures that you can use to remind yourself of anything during the raid. A link for this can be found in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching.